Chapter 1. The Challenge of the Future. Whenever I interview someone, I always ask the same question. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? It is a daunting question because everything we are taught in school is, by its very nature, a thought already shared by everyone. Answering it, therefore, requires both courage and intelligence, and courage is even rarer than genius. This contrarian question speaks directly to the future. For the future is not simply what has not yet happened, it is the time when the world will be different from what it is today. And progress, in my view, takes two distinct forms. There is horizontal progress, copying what already works, moving from 1 to n. This is the logic of globalization, for example, China reproducing what the West has built. And there is vertical progress, creating what does not yet exist, moving from 0 to 1. This is the logic of true technology. My deepest conviction is that most people are betting on globalization to shape the future, whereas technology is what truly matters. Without genuine innovation, extending our current ways of life to billions more people would lead not to prosperity, but to environmental catastrophe. Yet innovation has never been automatic in human history. After millennia of slow progress, the world experienced 2 centuries of breathtaking acceleration, until the 1970s, when everything strangely came to a standstill. Except in computing. Our parents dreamed of a bright future. They were wrong only in believing that it would arrive on its own. That is why I believe in startups. Small groups united by a common mission are often the only ones capable of creating an entirely new industry. Too small for bureaucracy, too ambitious to remain alone. Chapter 2. Party like it's 1999. Our contrarian question becomes easier if we first ask what everyone believes. Nietzsche wrote that madness is rare in individuals, but the rule among groups and entire ages. Find a widely shared delusion, and you will uncover the contrarian truth hidden behind it. Take an obvious assumption: a company exists to make money, not to lose it. Yet this seemed far from obvious in the late 1990s, when no loss was too great to be called an investment in a radiant future, and page views were treated as more meaningful financial indicators than profit itself. The 1990s are often remembered as a prosperous decade that merely ended with the dot-com crash. The reality was darker: an early decade recession, persistent unemployment, a general sense of malaise until 1994, and widespread anxiety about globalization. Silicon Valley itself seemed to be lagging behind Japan. Then Mosaic, the web browser released in 1993, changed everything. Netscape went public in 1995 without being profitable, and its stock price soared. Yahoo, followed by Amazon, soon did the same. Some saw it as market madness. I believe it was rational exuberance instead. The rest of the world was falling apart. Asian financial crises, the Russian default, the collapse of long-term capital management, and skepticism surrounding the euro. In that context, the new economy seemed like the only path to the future. I experienced that madness firsthand while leading PayPal. We paid users to sign up, generating exponential growth and equally exponential costs. We raised $100 million just before the bubble burst in March 2000. After the crash, 4 dogmas took hold: move only in small steps, stay agile without a definite plan, improve what already exists rather than create something new, and focus on the product rather than sales. I believe the opposite is closer to the truth. Boldness is better than banality. A bad plan is better than no plan at all. Competitive markets destroy profits, and selling matters just as much as building. The most contrarian thing is not to oppose the crowd, it is to think for yourself. Chapter 3. All happy companies are different. The business version of our contrarian question is this: what valuable company is nobody building? Creating value is not enough. You must also capture some of it. That is why an entire industry, such as airlines, can create hundreds of billions of dollars in value each year while earning only a few cents per passenger, whereas Google, with far lower revenue, retains 21% of it as pure profit. Airlines compete. Google stands alone. 2 opposing economic models explain this: perfect competition, where no firm earns lasting profits, and monopoly, which sets its own rules. By monopoly, I mean a company so exceptionally good at what it does that no other business can offer a close substitute. Not an illegal monopolist or a government favorite, but a creative one. Americans tend to romanticize competition, but capitalism and competition are in reality opposites. Capitalism presupposes the accumulation of capital, whereas perfect competition dissipates all profits. Our collective conversation on these subjects is clouded by a universal lie. Monopolists lie to protect themselves. They exaggerate their competition by defining their market as the union of several large markets. Google presents itself as merely one technology company among many, never as the search monopoly it truly is. Non-monopolists lie in the opposite direction. They shrink their market to the intersection of categories so narrow that they dominate them by definition. A British restaurant in Palo Alto has no competitors, but perhaps only because nobody really wants one. Competition also pushes people toward brutality. In a saturated market, businesses cannot afford to treat employees well or think beyond today's margins. Monopoly, by contrast, offers the freedom to think long-term and to take ethics seriously without putting one's existence at risk. In a dynamic world, the creative monopolist is not merely a rent collector. It adds entirely new categories of abundance to the world, which explains why old monopolies are always replaced by better ones. The perfect equilibrium cherished by economists is, in business, simply another name for death. Tolstoy wrote that all happy families are alike. In business, the opposite is true. All happy companies are different, each having solved a unique problem, and all failed companies are alike, having failed to escape competition. Chapter 4. The Ideology of Competition. Creative monopoly offers new products for everyone and lasting profits for its creator. Competition, by contrast, offers profits to no one and turns survival into a permanent struggle. Why, then, do we believe competition is healthy? Because it is more than an economic concept. It is an ideology that distorts our entire way of thinking. Our educational system reflects this. Grades precisely measure our level of competitiveness, and the best students eventually build their entire identities around this artificial reality. I climbed that ladder myself, to Stanford and then to Stanford Law School, where I came close to winning the greatest prize of all, a clerkship at the United States Supreme Court. I failed to obtain it. Years later, an old friend smiled and asked me, "Aren't you glad you didn't get that job?" Looking back, winning that battle would probably have ruined my creative career. Shakespeare, more than Marx, explains rivalry in business. We fight not because we are different, but because we are too similar, and eventually forget why the struggle began. Microsoft and Google, two rival houses obsessed with one another, allowed Apple to surpass them both. The market for mobile card readers produced a square, a semicircle, a cylinder, and a triangle, mere imitations born of rivalry rather than value creation. Sometimes it is better to merge than to fight. That is what Max Levchin and I did with Elon Musk and X.com, avoiding a war that would have destroyed us both before the bubble burst. The lesson is simple. Either do not fight at all, or strike hard and finish quickly. Recognizing competition as a destructive force rather than a sign of value is already a step toward recovering one's reason. Chapter 5. The Last Mover Advantage. Escaping competition gives rise to monopoly, but a monopoly is only valuable if it endures over time. Compare the New York Times with Twitter. Each employs a few thousand people, yet Twitter, despite losing money, was once valued at 12 times more on the stock market than the profitable Times. The reason is simple. The value of a business today is the sum of all the money it will generate in the future. Investors anticipated monopolistic profits for Twitter in the decade to come, whereas the golden age of newspapers was already behind them. Technology companies often lose money at first. Building something valuable takes time. At PayPal in 2001, I calculated that 75% of our present value would come from profits generated after 2011, even though the company was only 27 months old at the time. Focusing solely on short-term growth, as Zynga and Groupon did, obscures the real question. Will this company still exist 10 years from now? A durable monopoly generally rests on a combination of 4 characteristics. Proprietary technology, ideally 10 times better than any substitute. Network effects, which require starting with a tiny but already useful market. Economies of scale and a strong brand. which never works without genuine substance beneath it, as Yahoo's failed strategy of relying on coolness alone demonstrated. To build a monopoly, you must start small and completely dominate a niche before gradually expanding into adjacent markets. Amazon began with books before becoming the world's general store. eBay first dominated the market for Beanie Babies before expanding to collectors more broadly. Any company that aims to capture 1% of a $100 billion market should immediately raise alarm bells. Finally, beware of the obsession with disruption. It encourages you to view your own creation through the eyes of your competitors, and it invites trouble. Just ask Napster. It is better never to be the first mover, but rather the last. The company that, after dominating a modest niche, delivers the final great innovation in its market and reaps the rewards for decades to come. Chapter 6. You are not a lottery ticket. Perhaps the most contested question in business is this: does success come from luck or from talent? Malcolm Gladwell speaks of a patchwork of lucky breaks. Warren Buffett calls himself a member of the ovarian lottery. Yet the very existence of serial entrepreneurs such as Steve Jobs and Elon Musk challenges this explanation. If success were nothing but chance, such repeated achievements would not exist. Still, the debate remains scientifically impossible to settle because every company is founded only once. Statistics are of little use when the sample size is one. What truly matters is not how we judge the past, but how we choose to think about the future. Is it governed by chance or by design? We can imagine the future as either definite or indefinite, and as either better or worse than the present. This gives rise to 4 distinct attitudes. Indefinite pessimism, the mindset that has prevailed in Europe since the 1970s, expects decline without knowing when or how it will come. One can only enjoy the present while waiting, which perhaps explains Europe's obsession with vacations. Definite pessimism, the mindset of contemporary China, actively prepares for a future it assumes will be difficult by frantically copying whatever has worked in the West. Definite optimism guided the West from the 17th century through the 1960s. Engineers and visionaries built the Empire State Building in 2 years, sent men to the moon, and planned decades in advance. Today, a similarly ambitious proposal, even one as practical as the famous Reber Plan for San Francisco Bay, would likely be dismissed as an eccentric fantasy. Since 1982, however, indefinite optimism has come to dominate. We believe the future will be better without knowing how, and so we never plan for it precisely. This is the logic of finance, which makes money without knowing what to do with it in the real economy. The founders entrust it to bankers who diversify it among institutional investors who scatter it across stocks without anyone in the entire chain knowing how to create genuinely new wealth. It is also the logic of our political philosophies. Rawls and Nozick alike are indefinitely optimistic, and of modern biotechnology, which proceeds largely by trial and error instead of precise theory. But indefinite optimism is inherently unstable. How can the future improve if no one plans for it? Darwinian evolution is often invoked as the answer. Progress without design. It is the logic behind the lean startup, endless iteration without a grand plan. Yet iteration without bold vision leads only to local maxima, never to the global maximum. Steve Jobs never relied on focus groups. He designed Apple as a company, guided by precise plans extending years into the future. That same mindset explains why Facebook rejected Yahoo's acquisition offer in 2006. Mark Zuckerberg could see where he intended to take his company when Yahoo could see nothing at all. We must recover a definite future. A startup is the largest enterprise over which you can exercise genuinely definite control. You are not a lottery ticket. Chapter 7. Follow the money. Matthew wrote long ago, "For to everyone who has, more will be given." Einstein is often said to have called compound interest the 8th wonder of the world, a probably apocryphal quotation, but one that perfectly illustrates its own message. He continues to receive credit for words he never spoke, collecting intellectual interest from beyond the grave. This is the power law at work. A handful of actors radically outperform all the others, from the Pareto principle to the most destructive earthquakes. Venture capital offers perhaps the clearest illustration. Most funded startups fail, but investors hope that a tiny number will grow exponentially. The classic mistake is to assume a normal distribution, a few failures, a few moderate successes, and a few good outcomes, and to diversify accordingly. In reality, within a successful fund, the single best investment often returns as much as or more than all the others combined. At Founders Fund, Facebook returned more than the entirety of the rest of our 2005 fund put together. Palantir ranks second, outperforming all the remaining investments on its own. This imposes two strange rules on investors. First, invest only in companies capable of returning the value of the entire fund by themselves. Second, and because the first rule eliminates almost everything, there can be no other rule. The moment one begins investing with diversification in mind, rather than the exclusive pursuit of the few companies capable of dominating their markets, venture capital starts to resemble a lottery, and one has already begun preparing psychologically to lose. The power law does not apply only to investors. Each of us invests our time, our careers, and our life's choices. Yet our schools teach precisely the opposite lesson, encouraging us to accumulate diverse skills in order to hedge our futures. This is mistaken. What you choose to do truly matters. A founder cannot diversify himself. Owning 100% of a company that fails is worth nothing, whereas owning 0.01% of Google would today be worth tens of millions of dollars. In a world governed by the power law, you cannot afford not to think seriously about where your actions will fall on the curve. Chapter 8. Secrets. Every famous idea of today was once unknown. The Pythagorean theorem was a secret known only to the members of Pythagoras' strange cult. Today, it is merely a convention taught to schoolchildren. A conventional truth may be important, but it will never give you an advantage. Our contrarian question makes sense only if the world still contains secrets waiting to be discovered. We must distinguish secrets from mysteries. Mysteries, such as string theory, may ultimately prove impossible to unravel. Secrets, by contrast, are difficult, but attainable. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, theorized that human goals fall into three categories: the easy, the difficult, and the impossible. In his view, all difficult problems had already been solved, leaving us with only the easy or the impossible, a recipe for modern depression. His methods were insane, but his loss of faith in the technological frontier still surrounds us today, even in the nostalgic aesthetics of hipster culture. Four trends have eroded our belief in secrets: educational incrementalism, which rewards small steps rather than bold leaps; risk aversion, which fears being both alone and wrong; the complacency of elites who are too comfortable to keep searching; and the sense that the world has become flat, where someone else must surely have already discovered whatever you seek. A world without secrets would believe in perfectly efficient markets, yet the dot-com and housing bubbles prove otherwise. Hewlett-Packard illustrates the decline of a company that stopped searching. Having moved from constant invention to mere managerial bookkeeping, its value stagnated for 2 decades. Andrew Wiles proved Fermat's last theorem after 358 years of failed attempts, a reminder that one must first believe in secrets before beginning to search for them. In business, Airbnb, Uber, and Lyft saw untapped capacity where others saw nothing at all, a sign that there are still great companies waiting to be built. There are two kinds of secrets: secrets of nature and secrets about people, things people conceal because they do not want others to know them. The best place to look is where no one else is looking. Nutrition, for example, matters enormously, yet no major university treats it with the seriousness it deserves. Finding a secret raises another question. To whom should you reveal it? Neither to no one, nor to everyone, but to a company. A great company is a conspiracy to change the world. Sharing your secret is creating an accomplice. Take the hidden paths. Chapter 9. Foundations. Every great company is unique, but all of them must get certain fundamentals right at the beginning. My friends jokingly call this Thiel's Law. A startup that is poorly founded cannot be repaired. Beginnings are special. That was true 13.8 billion years ago at the birth of the universe, and it was true in 1787 at the Philadelphia Convention. The decisions made then became remarkably enduring. The most important decision of all is whom you start with. Choosing a co-founder is like getting married, and founder disputes are every bit as ugly as divorce. I learned this lesson from Luke Nosek, whose first startup failed because he and his co-founder had not known each other well enough before partnering, the entrepreneurial equivalent of marrying the first person you meet in Las Vegas. To anticipate misalignment within a company, one must distinguish among three concepts: ownership, who legally owns the shares; possession, who actually runs the business day to day; and control, who formally governs it. Visit any motor vehicle office, and you will witness complete misalignment among all three. A board of directors should remain small, 3 members, 5 at most, for an oversized board exercises no genuine oversight. It merely shields the micro-dictator who truly runs the organization. Everyone in your company should devote themselves to it full-time. Consultants and remote employees create structural misalignment. Either you're on the bus or you're not. Cash is not king. A company is healthier when its CEO pays himself little, never more than $150,000 a year for the CEO of an early-stage startup. A high salary turns the founder into a politician defending the status quo rather than a creator of future value. 4 years after founding Box, Aaron Levy was still living in a studio apartment furnished with nothing but a mattress, an example that his entire team willingly followed. Startups can afford to pay low salaries because they offer something better: ownership. Equity aligns people with the creation of future value, but allocating it is delicate. Perfect equality seems arbitrary, while inequality seems unfair. Better to keep such details secret than to send an email that would amount to dropping a nuclear bomb on your office. A company's founding moment comes only once. It is then, and only then, that you can establish the rules that align everyone toward creating future value. And if you succeed, you may even extend that founding indefinitely. Chapter 10. The Mechanics of the Mafia. Imagine the ideal company culture: beanbag chairs, in-house sushi chefs, pets welcome at work. The problem? These are merely perks without substance, and without substance, perks do not work. Company culture does not exist separately from the company itself. A startup is a team united by a mission, and good culture is simply what that mission feels like from the inside. My first team became known as the PayPal Mafia because we went on to found or fund SpaceX, Tesla, LinkedIn, YouTube, Yelp, Yammer, and Palantir together. We did not assemble this team by sorting resumes. Earlier, at a New York law firm, I had seen colleagues who were individually brilliant, yet whose relationships remained strangely superficial. Spending the most valuable hours of your life with people with whom you share no common future is not even rational. Recruiting is a core competence that can never be outsourced. The real question is not, why will your stock options be worth more? Every company makes that claim. But rather, why does your mission matter, and why will no one else accomplish it? Never compete on perks. Promise something that no one else can offer: irreplaceable work alongside extraordinary people. Viewed from the outside, everyone in your company should be different in the same way. Like Silicon Valley's logo t-shirts, the uniform of a tribe devoted to its mission. Viewed from the inside, however, every individual should be clearly distinguished by his or her work. At PayPal, each employee was responsible for one thing and one thing only, which minimized internal conflict, the true cause of a startup's death far more often than external competition. On the spectrum between a cult and a consulting firm, the best startups lean toward the cult, except that they happen to be fanatically right about something the outside world has not yet seen. Chapter 11. If you build it, will they come? Sales are everywhere, yet they remain underestimated, nowhere more so than in Silicon Valley. In The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, an entire planet is evacuated aboard 3 spaceships: thinkers aboard Ship A, workers aboard Ship C, and salespeople and consultants relegated to Ship B, which is sent off first through a clever deception. This reflects our collective bias. We believe that a great product should attract customers all by itself. But building a great product is never enough. Customers do not simply appear on their own. Engineers are often suspicious of sales because they seem superficial. Yet advertising works, even on you, even if you believe yourself immune to it. Its purpose is not necessarily to make you buy something immediately, but to plant subtle impressions that will shape future decisions. The best salespeople are invisible precisely because no one likes to feel that they are being sold to. Hence the endless disguises: account executive, business development, or even politician. Distribution follows its own power law. For any given business, one method of distribution usually works far better than all the others. Two metrics define its limits. The customer lifetime value, CLV, must exceed the customer acquisition cost, CAC. Along this continuum, complex sales, seven-figure deals, such as Elon Musk negotiating with NASA, require personal attention and patience. Personal sales, such as Box, which built its business customer by customer, beginning with something as modest as Stanford's sleep clinic, remain the most common approach. Advertising is appropriate for products with low margins but broad appeal, such as Warby Parker. Finally, viral growth, the model behind PayPal and Facebook, spreads from user to user at virtually no cost. At PayPal, we paid users both to sign up and to refer their friends. Acquiring each customer cost us $20, but generated daily growth of 7%. Our user base nearly doubled every 10 days. Rather than scattering our efforts, we targeted a precise segment with high monetary velocity, professional sellers on eBay. A company does not sell only its products, it must also sell itself to employees, investors, and even the press. Trying to pursue several distribution channels simultaneously without mastering any one of them perfectly is one of the surest paths to failure. Everyone sells something, including you. Chapter 12. Man and Machine. As information technology advances at extraordinary speed, everyone asks the same question. 30 years from now, will there be anything left for human beings to do? Futurists and Luddites share the same mistaken premise, that better computers will inevitably replace human workers. That premise is false. Computers are complements to human beings, not substitutes for them. Globalization, by contrast, is about substitution, human beings competing with one another for the same jobs and the same resources. Computers, however, do not covet villas on the French Riviera or vintage Cristal champagne. They require little more than electricity. Human beings and machines are categorically different. We form intentions and exercise judgment in complex situations. They excel at processing vast quantities of data. A Google supercomputer equipped with 16,000 processors identified a cat correctly only 75% of the time. A 4-year-old child does so effortlessly. I discovered this complementarity at PayPal. In 2000, we were losing $10 million each month to credit card fraud. Our first instinct as engineers was to automate fraud detection entirely, but fraudsters adapted faster than our software could. The solution proved to be hybrid. The computer flagged suspicious transactions, and human analysts made the final decisions. This system, known as Igor, carried us to our first profitable quarter in early 2002. The same logic gave birth to Palantir, which I co-founded in 2004. Neither human intelligence agents nor computers alone can protect us. It is their combination that has made it possible both to identify terrorist networks and to dismantle the world's largest child pornography ring. LinkedIn illustrates the same principle. Rather than replacing recruiters, it transformed the way they work. The real question for tomorrow's businesses is not which problems computers can solve on their own, but how they can help human beings solve difficult problems together. Chapter 13. Seeing Green. At the beginning of the 2000s, everyone agreed that clean technology would be the next great thing. Al Gore called for a mobilization worthy of a national wartime effort. Thousands of entrepreneurs rushed in, and investors poured more than $50 billion into the sector. The result? Instead of a healthier planet, we got a massive bubble, with more than 40 solar manufacturers going bankrupt in 2012 alone. Most clean tech companies failed because they neglected one or more of the 7 questions every business must answer. First, engineering. Your technology must be 10 times better, not merely incremental. Solindra's cylindrical solar cells were inherently less efficient than conventional flat panels. Second, timing. Photovoltaic efficiency had been improving slowly and linearly since 1954, with no indication that an imminent breakthrough was approaching. Third, monopoly. Founders boasted of trillion-dollar markets, failing to understand that enormous markets usually imply fierce and bloody competition. They might have been better off opening a British restaurant in Palo Alto. Fourth, the team. At Founders Fund, we had a simple rule: never invest in a technology CEO wearing a suit and tie. Fifth, distribution. Better Place raised $800 million without ever clarifying what customers were actually buying or making that purchase easy. Sixth, durability. No one anticipated Chinese competition or the shale gas revolution, which drove prices down by 70%. Finally, the secret. Everyone repeated the same conventional truth about the world's need for clean energy. A great company requires a reason for success that others cannot yet see. Tesla, by contrast, answered all 7 questions correctly. Its technology integrates its components masterfully. Its timing captured a unique and non-repeatable window of government subsidies. It began with a tiny market, high-end electric sports cars, before dominating the luxury sedan segment. Its team sees itself as a special forces unit. Its vertically integrated distribution model gives it complete control over the customer experience. Its coveted brand ensures durability, and its deepest secret was understanding that cleantech was as much a social phenomenon as an environmental imperative, which is why Leonardo DiCaprio traded his Prius for a Tesla Roadster. The world will always need new sources of energy. But no industry, however important, is sufficient by itself to build a great company. You must find a precise niche and dominate it, just as Facebook began on a single college campus before conquering the world. Chapter 14. The Founder's Paradox. Of PayPal's 6 founders, 4 had built bombs in high school, 5 were 23 years old or younger, and 4 were born outside the United States. We might have seemed eccentric. Luke Nosek signed up for cryonic preservation. Max Levchin proudly described himself as stateless. Founders appear to follow an inverted distribution, combining traits that ordinarily should not coexist. A startup CEO can be cash poor and a millionaire on paper, melancholy one day and charismatic the next, both insider and outsider at once. Where does this strangeness come from? Perhaps from a cycle in which already unusual individuals are amplified by the media until they become myths. Richard Branson crowned alternately the king of publicity and the king of virgin, or Sean Parker transformed from an FBI-arrested hacker into Facebook's founding president. These extreme figures are nothing new. Oedipus and Romulus were both insiders and outsiders, lawmakers and outlaws. Ancient societies required scapegoats, revered before their sacrifice, to resolve collective conflicts. Perhaps every modern king is merely a scapegoat who has managed to postpone his own execution. We alternately worship and despise our technological founders just as we do our celebrities. Howard Hughes, the aviation genius, ended his life as a reclusive, obsessive-compulsive. Bill Gates, simultaneously an awkward nerd and the richest man in the world, watched Microsoft stagnate after being forced to defend the company against antitrust lawsuits rather than build new technologies. Steve Jobs' return to Apple demonstrates the irreplaceable value of a founder. Dismissed in 1985, he returned in 1997 to launch the iPod, the iPhone, and the iPad, making Apple the world's most valuable company. Businesses that create genuinely new technologies often resemble feudal monarchies far more than modern bureaucracies. The lesson for business is that we need founders, however strange they may be. The lesson for founders is never to overestimate their individual power. The greatest danger is becoming so convinced of one's own myth that one ultimately loses touch with reality.